My father left me when I was 10, I came home from school one day and he was gone and I was alone. My grandmother eventually took me in, but that moment gave me issues that I'm still working through. My grandmother passed away and was buried a couple of weeks ago. I saw my father for the first time in 14 years at his mother's funeral. After the will was read, we learnt that my grandmother had left me her property. My father was furious, apparently he feels he has more rights to her property than I do because she was his mother. He's been harassing me to hand over the property to him and promising that when he dies I can have it. I don't want to give him the property because if my grandmother wanted him to have it, she would have put it in her will. My father has been going around telling the family that I stole his mother's property right from under him and I'm trying to punish him for leaving me. My family have been reaching out to tell me that even if he abandoned me that I shouldn't forget the importance of filial piety and how being good to my father, even if he isn't good to me, is what makes a good daughter. I don't think I'm doing anything wrong, but the comments and the suggestions are beginning to wear me down. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. You owe your father nothing for walking out on you. Don't even engage with him. Block his number if you have to. If he attempts to confront you in person, walk away. Put all your relatives on blast and tell them that the matter has been decided, that you're keeping the house, and that you will block anyone who attempts to continue discussing the topic. A fire can't burn without oxygen, so starve this issue of all its fuel. Even if you had suggested that your grandmother disinherit your father for abandoning you, you would not be the idiot. Your grandmother left her house to you because she wanted you to have it. End of story. Your father must have had little, if any, contact with your grandmother in the past 14 years if she raised you and you didn't see him again until the funeral. His choice to abandon his responsibility to you meant that she ended up taking over. There is zero chance of you inheriting the house when your father dies. If he doesn't sell it and squander the money, it'll be left to a love interest or beer buddy or something. Your father is literally a selfish deadbeat dad. Girl, please do not hand over that property. It is legally yours. Get a restraining order against him and if he sets foot on your property, then he can be escorted off. You do not owe him anything. Stay strong. If you don't have a support system around you, just reach out on here. We'll be your support system. Keep that house. Live your life with happiness, purpose and complete confidence. He made his life choices and they aren't your problem. Keep the house. Tell your dad to jump off a cliff and anyone that's on his side can join him. He just wants the assets and I wouldn't trust his word for crap. He bailed and only came back for profit. He's pissed his mom wasn't that gullible, she knew you needed something stable after she was gone and she gave you what she could. She wants you to have it, not him. Do not let him screw you over again. I'm sorry you have a horrible dad, but you had an awesome grandma. My parents divorced when I, 17, was 3. My dad moved 5 hours away which meant seeing him one weekend a month, and my mom being my primary parent. My mom had my sister Ella when I was 4. She's the best. I adore my sister and would do anything for her. I don't see her as my half-sister either. She's just my sister. My dad is married to Jenny and they have 4 kids together ages 11 and under. I definitely think of them as half-siblings and not just siblings. I am not as close to them and don't really value having a relationship with them, but I would say the same about my dad. Our relationship exists, but I don't care if we one day end up not talking. It's the same with his kids. It kills my dad that I adore Ella, but his kids I don't put the same time and effort into. He showed up for the youngest's birthday and saw me hanging out with Ella. It bothered him and his kids that I don't do that stuff with him. He blames my mom though. He said she should have done more to facilitate in my relationship with them and she should be demanding I love them and treat them the same as Ella. I told him he can't blame her when he is the one who moved and that had consequences. It meant he wasn't much of a dad to me and his kids have never been more than his kids. Not my siblings, not my family, just kids I see once a month. It's like with him. I call him dad more out of habit than actual feeling like he's my dad. My mom never told me, but I know he didn't really pay child support despite his good job and I also know he turned down having me every other Christmas. And for those of you wondering, I may or may not have found some court documents as well as printed emails of conversations between them where my mom made the offer and my dad said he didn't want to drive all those hours to get me for 3 days. My dad is pissed that I'm blaming him. He said I'm old enough to know I should care and that I'm old enough to make the effort because the kids adore me and it hurts them when I take no interest. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Even if you live close with someone, that doesn't mean you end up emotionally invested in their lives anyways. You could have been in the same city and still not be interested in your half-siblings, but you still would not be the idiot for it. Neither is your mother responsible for your emotional connection to his children. The idiot here is your father who thinks you owe it to him to be more emotionally invested with his new family. You can't feel what you don't feel, and it's absolutely not your mother's responsibility to foster your attachment to your half-siblings. Of course you are more bonded with Ella, you have grown up alongside her. The reverse is true for your dad's other children. How would you have formed close ties with them in one weekend a month or fewer than 30 days a year, on average? You barely know them. For that matter, you barely know your dad and Jenny, and that's your dad's fault. Sounds like he has had opportunities to have you at his place more often and declined. I honestly wonder if the half-siblings truly do care. They saw you once a month and never for Christmas. To me it just doesn't seem like they would. If you feel up to it, talk with the oldest of the half-siblings and find out if they do or not. You don't need to see them as full brothers or sisters, but maybe nice people to be friends with, assuming they actually are nice. My 31 brother-in-law Tim, 30, lost his wife 8 months ago. To be honest, we aren't close, never been close due to his brutal honesty and his hurtful remarks to me all the time. He stopped paying rent for his former apartment because he doesn't work and asked to move in with me and my husband. I had reasons to say no, one of them is that I'm taking care of my 5-month-old son. It's hard, but with Tim's constant requests like cooking for him, cleaning his room, and fixing stuff for him, it's 10 times harder. I tried to be graceful and deal with it, but he's become annoying, constantly commenting on my weight, saying things like "Are you comfortable looking like that?" or "Wow, you've changed so much since you had the baby." It's annoying, but my husband asked me to let it go, since Tim is grieving and isn't thinking rationally. Yesterday was the final straw. I had my best friends over for the first time after my son was born. We were in the living room chatting while Tim was asleep. He sleeps till 4 p.m. He showed up later and sat with us and started taking part in the conversation. We were talking about being busy all day, and he interrupted me and asked, "So when are you planning on losing that baby weight? I guess you should take advantage of the last month of summer and get in shape before it's too late." I was in shock and dismay and embarrassed by my friends going radio silence like that. He doubled down by looking at me, waiting for an answer. I bluntly said, "Actually, I'm not planning on losing any baby weight anytime soon, unfortunately, but I am however planning on losing some dead weight, that is you and your never-ending demands all day every day while I'm trying to care for my newborn." He told me to chill, but I got up from the couch and said I couldn't put up with this anymore and he had to pack and leave. He didn't think I was serious, but then head upstairs and called his brother. My husband came home after my friends left and called me ridiculous for kicking his grieving brother out over a question he asked. I said he embarrassed me in front of my friends and that I was done catering to his demands, from cooking, cleaning while trying to care for my infant with no sleep, nor self-care for myself, and this is how he treats me. He agreed but said kicking Tim out would be cruel, nuclear, and unnecessary since we can work this out differently. I refused to discuss it, said he had to go. I gave him 2 days to find a place to stay, and my husband is convincing me I was making a mistake and should have some empathy towards Tim and his situation as a new widower, besides that it's my husband's home too, so I can't make this decision alone. Did I overreact here? Not the idiot. Your brother-in-law was always a rude idiot. He's not acting this way because he's in grief, he's doing it because that's who he is. And apparently, I missed the stage of grieving that involves being a rude, entitled body, shaming little prick to the woman who is generously trying to care for you in your time of need. If your husband wants to support his brother so much he can help him pay rent somewhere else, your happiness and sanity is not an acceptable trade-off for his brother being supported even at a time like this. This is so ridiculous. I don't care if brother-in-law is grieving or not, but this attitude is not acceptable. What's worse is that your husband is tolerating it. OP, please have a serious conversation with your husband and let him know that either he chooses you and the baby or his ungrateful brother. You're an angel for having tolerated this so long with a newborn around. I would have put my foot down way earlier. This doesn't sound like new behavior on Tim's part. and even if it is, something tells me if your husband was the one enduring regular daily insults on his way toward whatever features he's most sensitive about, he'd be considerably less willing to chalk this up to grief and more concerned with why Tim can't be putting this focus toward getting back on his own 2 feet. Tim needs to go, and you and your husband need to get to counseling to figure out why he thinks you need to be willing to put up with this kind of treatment under any circumstances. Hey, guys, I, 26, just moved roughly 18,000 kilometers away from my ex-boyfriend, 32, and we have a daughter together, too. Long story short, I am from a small island in Polynesia, and I moved to France in 2017, met my ex, and had a kid there. I have zero family in France. We broke up at the end of 2020. It was a rough breakup, but I wanted my daughter to be with her dad as much as possible, but at the same time he would insult me and our baby anytime he would get mad at me. I decided to stay in France to stay close to him for our daughter's sake. Lived there until my mother passed in April this year. I couldn't attend the funeral because of the pandemic, but I decided to go back to my island in June, taking my daughter with me to help my dad with cleaning and sorting out my mom's stuff. We had meetings with a notary, and of course, I needed that time here with my family to cope with my loss. I didn't plan on staying here because I like living in France, and to be honest, I don't like living on a tiny island. But my ex is calling me selfish and an idiot and all kinds of slurs because I stole his daughter. He is not that involved with her, to begin with. I have custody, and I was just planning on visiting my family for a couple of weeks until we got into lockdown in my home country. I have to wait until probably October to go back. Am I the idiot for going home and be with my family, even though he doesn't show much interest in our daughter in the first place, if not for showing her off on social media? Not the idiot. Tough decision, but the behavior of the father really makes any other decision impossible. You can't leave your daughter with him. You can't opt out of supporting your family after the loss of your mother. Even if your child's father didn't act like an idiot so frequently, sometimes in life there are no great choices, you just have to go with the least bad. You have enough on your plate without feeling guilty about making the best possible decision, so put that aside for now if you can. I would definitely consult a lawyer, as this might be seen as kidnapping. If he's verbally abusive to you both, leaving him alone and having the only court-ordered interactions sounds like the most logical and safe way to protect you and your daughter. But some laws, especially international laws, could define what you did by moving with your daughter without his or a court's express consent, could land you in hot water in the future. You have custody, and I believe in full since the court allows you to bring her away with you without his okay. In this case, you didn't do anything wrong at all. He's not really involved in daughter's life, and you're back home temporarily because of family issues and can't head back to France because of lockdown, but will be back eventually once it's over. If he's truly missing his daughter, he can always video chat with her. Is he even doing this? I highly doubt so. If I'm right, he's just finding any means to pick a fight with you, that's all. I'm a single father of 2, Claire 25 and Jess 19. Claire's husband and I have formal relationship, but frankly, neither me nor Jess like spending too much time with him, but we're very cordial. He came over and sat with me and Jess for coffee. We talked about weather, politics, and daily issues, then he out of nowhere started talking about my assets. I felt a bit bothered discussing stuff like that, but I was happy to answer a few questions he had. I said I was planning on selling my 2 properties and use the money for my upcoming surgery, and the rest will be split equally between my daughters besides the house as mentioned in my will. He talked about how unfair he thought it was that both sisters get equal inheritance, asking me to take under consideration the fact that both are at very different stages in life. For example, Claire has a family to support and medical expenses, debts to cover, and is a stay-at-home mom. While Jess is single, plans on being child-free, has a job already. Besides, Jess will probably waste money irresponsibly on greedy guys she dates instead of an investment. Jess got uncomfortable. I responded, Claire's circumstances won't change anything in my will and decision is taken. He said, Jesus, you seem to enjoy blaming Claire for making a decision to start a family at a young age, don't you? Then went about my grandchildren and my obligation towards them and their future. I said yes, those are my grandkids, but am I the one responsible for providing them? He tried to politely explain that I should help him and Claire out and asked me to reconsider giving my Claire more than half, while Jess gets less. I politely but firmly stated Jess deserves as much as her older sister gets since she's young and she needs help with college debts still. I asked him to respect my decision wanting my will to be executed the way I wanted and that I don't want him to make such unnecessary fuss about it later. He just smiled and sarcastically said, I guess you'll just have to die and we'll see then. I was shocked, like, was this a joke? I got upset and stood up and pointed at the door and told him I was having none of these half polite half mean conversations anymore and asked him to please leave. Jess asked me to take it easy, but it was already too late and the argument escalated. He said he was hurt by me kicking him out for just making a suggestion and that I was holding in all this hate for him and finally found an excuse to insult him. He told Claire about how I kicked him out for just pointing out that I'm not doing enough for my family. I get they're struggling, but I couldn't ignore how dismissive he was towards Jess, acting like she doesn't have a life. We're known to be cordial, so to hear I kicked him out was a shock to my family. Legally I got nothing to worry about, but morally, I don't think I handled this conflict the way I was supposed to. Not the idiot. I think you handled this pretty well given the offensive comments being made. I really don't see how you could have handled this any better, even from a moral perspective. Your son-in-law was intentionally trying to manipulate you. Based on what you've typed, it's quite obvious he was planning to have this conversation with you before he came over. It was a premeditated attempt to influence you to his own benefit. It's quite obvious why you and your younger daughter don't like spending much time with this guy. He's a major idiot. You did nothing wrong. Your daughter's circumstances don't matter. The inheritance should be split evenly. Also, it was not his place to have this conversation with you at all. The only thing you did wrong was indulging him in the first place by discussing this with him. This man is a vulture who is waiting on you to die so that he can get a windfall. I hope your will has been filed with the court. Please do not change it or allow your daughter's husband guilt you into cheating your other daughter out of her fair share. Also, your daughter's husband is the greedy one, not Jess's future boyfriend's. I think how you handled the situation was very well done. How did Claire respond? Is she upset about the inheritance distribution or how you reacted to her husband? I would revisit your will and double down the effort to alleviate possible drama. Him hinting that he'll possibly make a fuss about the inheritance is like him hinting he'll ruin Jess and Claire relationship or force Jess to give up some of her inheritance for the sake of keeping a relationship with Claire. While in no means you cannot force them to continue having a relationship, I think it'll help them both from blaming each other about the will distribution if they can just direct the blame to your will terms.